When authors do battle, they do it with words. They throw a story back and forth, each trying to write the other into a corner. The results can be terrifying, or they can be legendary. The challenger, representing the villain this week, is
Simon Canton. Dave shall tremble before my narrative might.
And the defender, representing the hero, is
Dave Higgins. And I shall smash Simon so hard he will evermore be squamous.
Defender, choose your genre.
The genre is horror.
Challenger, choose the hero.
The hero is a claustrophobic 6-year-old girl called Agnes Weatherbow. She's terrified of any space more confined than a warehouse.
Defender, choose the time period.
The period is Victorian England.
Challenger, choose the villain.
The villain is noted industrialist and mechanical genius Lord Charles Flabbergastly. He's a millionaire with ties to government.
Defender, what special skill does the hero have?
When Agnes's grandfather rescued a Pacific Islander from drowning, his descendants were blessed that they should always have fair winds and good fishing.
Challenger, what's happening at the start of our story?
Lord Charles has created an underground burrowing machine using the new technological marvel known as the steam engine. He is travelling underground, emerging to kidnap small children. He puts the children to work in his mines deep beneath the earth. Lord Charles pops up at the workhouse where Agnes is working and grabs her, throwing her in his steam digging machine and driving back underground. When he stops, they're in a gold mine with no known exit back to the surface. He demands she get to work mining gold.
Defender, what happens next?
Agnes panics in the narrow tunnels and lashes out at the walls with a pick. Her blows shatter a pit prop, collapsing a wall and revealing a gaping void beyond. Agnes dives into the darkness.
The other children in the mine scream at Agnes not to go in there. As Agnes runs into the dark tunnel, she hears scraping noises against the rock. Agnes calls for the other children to follow her. She turns and looks back at the entrance to the tunnel and sees something jump across the opening. Lord Charles stares after Agnes. He seems panicked. He jumps into his digging machine and disappears. The tunnel his digging machine has created collapses, leaving no way out of the mine.
There are no sounds of movement. It must just have been a shadow, she thinks. Agnes's screams and the shouts of the other children do not echo. No longer enclosed by close stone, Agnes starts to calm, and hears a rushing sound in the distance. She calls out that she is fine. One of the other children lifts a phlogiston lamp from the wall and tentatively walks down the tunnel toward her.
As the child steps into the tunnel, the light from the lantern hits the walls around the hole. Agnes screams. A dozen creatures are clinging to the walls around the hole. The creatures look almost like giant spiders, but instead of being furry, they are hairless and grey. The creatures spring down on the child with the lantern and he screams. The lamp falls to the ground by his feet and goes out. Agnes can hear the sounds of a dozen pincers clamping down and the boy screaming. The only light is from the hole in the wall, where the other children are watching with wide, horrified eyes.
Frozen in terror, Agnes watches the creatures writhe across the boy's fallen body in the cast-out light from the tunnel. She screams again as something pliant brushes past her. More creatures gather and move into the tunnel. The children scream and flee, leaving her alone. Agnes watches in amazement as the creatures descend upon the lamps, tearing them asunder, rather than chasing the children. Hoping that she is right, she screams into the tunnels, "They only attack the light!"
Agnes feels a rumble under her feet. Lord Charles's digging machine breaks through the wall behind her, its headlights illuminating the entire corridor. The door of the digging machine opens and Lord Charles emerges with 2 tanks strapped to his back. "This mine has been cursed from the start," Lord Charles says, holding up something that looks suspiciously like a gun. He pulls the trigger and flames shoot from the end of the gun, hitting the spider creatures. They all scatter, running from the fire. Lord Charles shoots flames after them and then turns to look at Agnes. "I can't have any witnesses. I have my reputation to think of." He turns the gun towards Agnes and levels it at her.
The sudden flare of light revealed only spiders and rocks, and the sound of the digging machine drowns out any rushing sound in the distance, leaving Agnes no idea which way to run. The flame of the end of Lord Charles' device flickers and licks back towards him like some hellhound seeking to lick its master's hand. Realizing that if it bends towards him, there must be a draft behind her, Agnes screams spiders and points. Her feet pound as she races into the darkness.
Lord Charles turns and fires his gun, spewing flames onto a blank wall. Cursing, he turns back and looks for Agnes, but she's gone. "I've had enough of this," Lord Charles says. He climbs back into his digging machine and begins ploughing through the supports holding up the roof of the mine. The roof begins to collapse, showering rocks and earth down into the mine. "Once this mine is destroyed and those blasted bugs are gone, I'll hire someone to come down here and start again," Lord Charles says. He drives his machine after the fleeing children and spiders, toppling support after support. Meanwhile, Agnes finds the source of the breeze. A shaft of light shines down from a hole in the top of the giant chamber she stumbled into. The light illuminates dozens of webs below, each one home to a new, pink, bald spider. All of the spiders turn toward Agnes and hiss.
Agnes stumbles backwards, hoping the spiders do not attack. Something squishes beneath her foot, and a stabbing pain lances through her ankle. Curled in tears, she waits for the spider to strike again. But nothing. Uncurling, she notices something thin trailing from her ankle. Her fingers feel thin, damp cord, and then crude bent metal. A fishing line. But how did this get here, she thinks. The rushing sound must have been water. Returning to where it hooked her, she discovers silt and debris spread out in a line over cracked ground. Following it back into the darkness, she discovers a deeper hole. A tunnel to the surface, through which the river must flood at times. The spiders will not live in this, but it is so narrow, so dark. Clutching the fishing line in front of her, she crawls slowly towards the tunnel, repeating, "Grandpa said we were safe when fishing." She reaches the mouth of the tunnel. "Grandpa said we were safe when fishing." Slowly, inch by inch, she crawls into the tunnel.
Who do you think won the battle? Vote for a winner in the comments below.